The Digital Science Speaker Series showcases amazing people doing innovative things for research. And today's guest is no different. Matyas Kovacs is involved in Falling Walls and has also set up his own startup, Future Hind. Matyas, thank you so much for joining us today. We're at Falling Walls, and I think we're going to cover that today anyway, but I wondered whether you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what brings you here.
So first of all, a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for being featured in the series. Yeah, and what better place to pick than Falling Walls and just these days that are really some of the most special for me throughout the years, or throughout the year, because this is what made me move to Berlin in some sense, or at least the one thing that then kept me in Berlin. Falling Walls, where I've been working since 2016. So even pandemic included, this is my seventh Falling Walls now, I think. So that's quite a lot.
Wow.
And well, yeah, we get to the details later, but that's pretty much what literally brings me here and what makes this encounter so, yeah, a bit emotional and special for me.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's such an inspiring place. But for those that don't know anything about Falling Walls, can you sum it up in a few sentences? What is Falling Walls?
Falling Walls is an international platform connecting science and society, and science and industry, businesses, innovation, and the broader ecosystem in which research and in which breakthroughs come to be. Falling Walls was founded and started as a conference in 2009 on the 10th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And so, yeah, well, some years have passed and Falling Walls has grown tremendously, launching new platforms to bring in various facets, various pockets of the scientific community. Initially, it was this conference for the most renowned scientists of our day and age, but over the years, it has developed additional offerings for emerging career researchers, for science-based startups, for high-level policymakers. Now, Falling Walls is running the Berlin Science Week, which is this fantastic 10-day series to showcase Berlin's and the globe's science here in Berlin. So, and much more. So really, you should just go on the website and check it out. It's too much to pack it into a few sentences, but this would be Falling Walls in a nutshell, showing which are the next walls to fall in science and society.
Oh, I love that so much. So you talked about these different facets, these different strands. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those are, how they represent the different facets of research and progress in research as well? And maybe a little bit about the fact that it's not just a few days in November. There are events that happen throughout the year that lead up to this, aren't there, in some of these strands?
Absolutely, they are. So again, just taking it back to the genesis of Falling Walls as the Falling Walls Conference, but it has morphed into the Falling Walls Science Summit. Today is this 3-day event, where, just to make some sense for those who might not know Falling Walls, the first day is the day of the pitches, as we call it, where Falling Walls Lab, Engage, Venture are being presented and run. These are essentially pitch competitions in various ways, but essentially condensing a lot of knowledge into very few minutes, and then having people come from around the world who are doing exceptional work as early career researcher or as a science engager, science communicator, or a science-based startup to become one of the most amazing things of the year, which we call the breakthroughs of the year. But before we get there, so on the 8th, the second day, is the Falling Walls Circle, which are various tables, as we call it. These are tables bringing together high-level decision makers, industry leaders, science representatives, research and technology organizations, politicians. So really like the platform to showcase what are the most pressing and relevant topics in science and the broader science ecosystem and how we can potentially tackle those. And now with these 2 days of warm-up, in a sense, we arrive on the 9th of November, which is the day of the fall of the Berlin Wall, which is when the original Falling Walls Conference took place, and now it's the Falling Walls Science Summit, really the pinnacle moment where we showcase the breakthroughs of the year, the scientists and their projects in 10 different categories, ranging from natural sciences through science and the arts to social sciences and much more. this is what takes place on the 9th of November, which again isn't just the day of the fall of the Berlin Wall, but also the day of the Weißgrundnacht, as they call it in Germany, the first really big wave of pogroms against the Jews in 1938. And so this is an incredibly historical day here in Berlin, and this is something you have to understand and comprehend when you come to falling walls, and even make sure that every year we do commemorate what has to be commemorated, but also use this to look forward, to look towards the future, and to see how we can make a more open and more just and more fair and a more sustainable world to live in.
I think that's amazing. I think that essence of progress is really felt. I mean, even just this morning, I've had the privilege of going to some of the Engage pitches, and I think it's really interesting that probably across all of the strands, you find commonality in the themes. So I suppose I want to ask you, what makes Falling Walls different, and what enables those foreshadowing of the big challenges to come? What enables that? How do you engineer that?
Okay, that's an incredibly difficult question. I wouldn't know where to start, but if anything, Falling Walls is made so special by the people who come here. And these people, these are mostly scientists, or at least people interested in science, interested in the breakthroughs that are happening today and tomorrow, that are really pushing the needle in various disciplines, and whether it's a younger generation, or whether those who are really at the top, at the peak of the current science landscape, Nobel laureates, other awardees, those who are household names from the various sections and various domains and disciplines. This is really what makes Falling Walls unique, to have this all come together, and the whole world come together here in Berlin on this very historic day. Beyond that, what also makes Falling Walls special is that, well, you refer to it, that you can engineer this to some extent, and the very meeting design that is underlying to what you can experience here, that there are many things intertwined, but also a lot of things running simultaneously. So you have some sense of FOMO, while regardless of where you are, regardless of in which segment or in which section you are, you just get this incredible intellectual load that just keeps you floating through these days and like soaking up everything.
Yeah.
Of course, to then have some long tail of decompression, I guess, over the days after Falling Walls.
Yeah. It's almost physically, mentally, emotionally exhausting, but in a very positive, very fulfilling kind of a way, I suppose. Can you tell me a little bit about the impact of Falling Walls? Maybe can you even choose one favorite story from Falling Walls in all your years of being involved?
Well, there are a lot of favorite stories. I don't know which one would be the best to share on camera. Yeah, jokes aside. But yeah, I mean, of course, the first one, I guess, is always special. And to me, like coming here for the first time after I had applied to work at Falling Walls, and I remember watching the videos of like previous year's editions and looking at the website and like whatever you find, and it was really a love at first sight, and that still by no means compares to the experience when you're there in that space, and when you experience the intensity of the incredible people that come together from all over the world to develop ideas together, to develop projects together potentially. And over the course of the years, we, as a foundation, many of the colleagues who work at Falling Walls put a lot of effort into also create various ways to, even if not very specifically measure parts of the impact, because a lot of this, you're involved heavily with events, so you know that in some instances it's very hard to measure, like what measures do you put on serendipity, what measure do you put on collaborations that might just come together like years down the line. But I think like what we can safely say is that Falling Walls, especially this incredibly important realm of early career researchers, of science-based startups, of people who are just at the beginning or somewhere in the early phases of their careers, Falling Walls has created an incredible launch pad to capitalize on, and to to network on, and especially from what we hear from people who aren't from the Western Hemisphere, and what it does to them in their own respective home countries, and what it means when it comes to engaging through and with science in all these parts of the world, where this provides an additional boost to this metaphor of the falling wall of Berlin from '89 that still resonates around the world, even if many of the systems aren't exactly gravitating right now in the direction that this fall of the wall was supposed to mean. But I think tying it all together is really the impact that in this framework all these people can come together, can talk about the next walls that are about to come down, and where they also heavily contribute, of course, to these walls coming down through their own research and through their own engagement.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful metaphor. I think it's brilliant. I do feel like there are a bunch of stories you're not telling me because there are cameras pointing at you. So we'll talk about those later. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your current projects. You're still very much involved with Falling Walls, but you have now created a new startup called Future Hein. Can you tell me, did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, perfect.
Ah,
Yeah.
amazing.
All
Can
the
you
practice.
tell-
Yeah.
It was great. It was great. All the practicing paid off. Can you tell me what Future Hein means?
Yeah, future Hein mean well. The first part, future, I guess all the viewers will understand. But Hein is a somewhat antiquated German word for a growth, for small humble forests, and so this is also a metaphor in some sense, like falling walls. But my co-founder Felix, who also used to work for Falling Walls for many years, he was executive director at Falling Walls, and also at the head of the curation, the head of the conference program, while I was head of strategy at the time. And these two functions and these two ways of looking at science in a very strategic, structured way, but also in a way that enables through creativity, through innovation, through new formats. And this is what we thought, well, during the second lockdown, I believe that the time is now ripe for when so many of the people and the organizations are, well, not just deeply entrenched in maintaining various status quos, but also opening towards what's next. And this was something you heard a lot during the pandemic, like what's next, and like the new normal, the next normal, the current normal, the past normal, and like where we were also thinking that in this very space, in this ecosystem of science, like what is the new normal? What are new ways of collaborating? What are new ways of creating strategies that are more multilateral, that are more inclusive, that also capitalize on recent technological advances? And we started Future Hein as an agency with this spirit, and yeah, with tying this Hein, this forest metaphor back to an exploration where you might not exactly know where you end, but you have a sense for the direction that you're going. And this is what we've seen in many of the projects that which we work with, and projects that we helped launch and scale, is that it does still very much retain this exploratory nature, this curiosity-driven nature of science, and how science comes to be. And this is what we brought into this concept of a strategy and creative agency that helps science organizations and big alliances and scientists themselves and everyone in this ecosystem to ideate and think of and create new projects, and then help those projects be built and also be as well networked and as visible and as impactful as possible.
You can definitely sense the potential for that impact as well. You can see elements of Falling Walls within this. There's lots of that essence of collaboration, of breaking down barriers between different actors within the research ecosystem. In the age of misinformation and disinformation and the threats that we have to research integrity, how important is a platform like Future Hein?
Of course, every platform is important to counter these negative tendencies, but there, of course, I mean, Future Hein is absolutely waning in comparison to the magnificent platform that Falling Walls is. But what's, I guess, not really surprising to anyone who knows Felix and myself and those who work at the agency and also those who work at Falling Walls for that matter, is that both Felix and I have worked for Falling Walls for a very long time. So of course there's some shared DNA and some of the shared ways of looking at the world, the shared ways of looking at challenges that we want to overcome and the ways we want to overcome those. And there, Falling Walls does deliver a lot of great examples. And now, since Future Hein has been in existence for almost 3 years, we too have delivered examples on how you can work in a more transparent, more open, more collaborative manner. And there, especially when we are building and designing campaigns, this of course is something that is absolutely key to take the information as the very departure point and to well do speculations even in the realm of the information or the well-founded basics in projects when you think about the future. And of course, you might not know where you'll end up in 5 years or in 25 years or in all these grand processes of thinking about today's grand challenges and tomorrow's grand solutions. And with all that, yeah, we do not know exactly where we'll land, but this very exploratory nature is what we take in and where we work towards that with both our teams and with our clients.
I'm going to pick up on what you've just said there because you've alluded to these big global challenges that we're facing. What do you think the greatest challenge or threat is towards research at the moment?
Oh wow! So now we are like floating onto the somewhat more philosophical waters. There are well, it's a very systemic issue, and I know that this does sound like somewhat of an evading answer, but I think it would be incredibly hard to pick just one element in this web of various challenges and threats. And generally, also, if we view or if we look at research not just in its own ecosystem, but if we zoom out and we look at the societal implications and how the interfaces of research, the interfaces of science towards society, but also towards, for instance, policy and politics look like, and how in many places of the world where democracy is in decline, what this also means for science that is inherently built on an open, on a more sharing and more caring way of tackling these challenges. So I do view this as one global and systemic issue. Of course, there's no magic wand to just tackle this, but this is what I can tie back to the importance of platforms like Falling Walls, where many of the people who are not in as much of a privileged situation as we are right now in today's Berlin, but face a lot of these systemic issues in their own environment or in their own home country, can still come here and have meaningful conversations and exchanges and potentially start new collaborations and find out about new ways of doing impactful work and then moving the needle in their own ecosystems to then revert back to these bigger global challenges and help move towards this more open way of conducting science, for which some of the more systemic requirements are essential first to get that done right.
I think you've probably answered my next question then, really. You say you have no magic wand, but if you did have a magic wand, what change would you like to see for the future of research? Would it be on an individual level? Would it be on a professional level? What one change would you like to see?
Well, okay, I'm going to give somewhat of an evading answer again, just because I'm not an active researcher. So I don't think that I'm best placed to say what this magic wand for researchers should do. But as a general plea, I guess, and this is also something that both Falling Walls does and both Future Hein, the agency, does, is to very actively think of these interfaces of science and society and science and innovation and all the other stakeholders in this big construct in which science exists. But science, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? So because of this, like this magic wand, I guess, should just maintain this continuous awareness on how research is being done and who research is being done for, and how we can do our very best, everyone in this construct together to make science as impactful as possible.
That's such a beautiful answer, and I cannot believe you said you were evading the question. I think that's something we all hope for, certainly. Matyas, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's been so insightful and so inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.